Hey folks, Triple Crown. This is the continuation Germany 1 Part 3. I paused the video and we'll get into what's happening with formatting, but first we'll just conclude with the German income at the end of round 1. So territories that Germany controls, 52 IPP, and territories in the Atlantic, Vichy territories that Germany controls, that's 7, so that's 59 on the income tracker for Germany. And then bonus income, 20 IPP that they captured from the French for liberating or capturing Paris, and 5 IPP for Oslo, Denmark, that whole Norwegian IPP, and 5 IPP for not being at war with Russia, which is the old Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, I guess. So total of, I think that's 89 IPP. Now, in regards to format, in case you're wondering, what we're doing here as a group, and that is, we had some discussion, and the original thought was, we would just be doing round summary videos and sharing them. However, Hambone had an excellent point, as we want to be teaching the community how to play Global War 1939, not just see. I want you to see the errors and the mistakes and some of the thought processes as we work through them, so you kind of get an understanding, but also the mechanics of how we're playing the game. So, round 1 did have a few hiccups, but I will get into some of the questions that came up in a second, but we are going to be, posting or making the videos and allowing for hopefully some corrections amongst the group before we post. So you might see a turn, and then you might see a sort of a correction or an amendment video if there was an error. So just to clarify that. Now, in case anybody's wondering, on my map, I'm using the smaller map, and I didn't have the ICs on the map. So this is 2 major ICs and a minor. One of the major ICs goes in Western, one goes in Berlin, and the other one goes in Stettin. So first thing that we encountered was I had placed, I had 2 artillery starting in Elbing, and they should have been starting in Stettin. It didn't affect anything, but again, it was the wrong setup, but just to point that out. Another thing that came into question was, whoa, these Norwegian ships, as soon as Oslo, which is the capital of Norway, is captured, and that's the same with any strict neutral or neutral country, is that these ships, if there's a navy, are rolled for right away. So which on turn 1 does sway things quite a bit, or it could sway things depending on if the Allies or the Germans capture, these Norwegian boats. As you see, the odds of Germany capturing both coastal battleships is, I'm going to say, not a common, or like as CB's Bill chimed in, it's like a 2-point-something% chance. But that's how that has occurred, and that's how it's explained in the rules, and that's how I've always been played it when I've done games with Hilltop Pillbox, which is why my turn 1 purchase for Germany is always some navy. And that is because, say these 2 coastal battleships become British, well, now that's a larger task to sink this fleet up here in the sea zone, and you might need those extra ships to help you out, which is why I always buy a couple submarines on turn 1. But that does occur right away. Now, in regards to, I paused in my video when I rolled the ships for Yugoslavia and Denmark. And that is because, typically at the end of the round is when ships are rolled for. But with Vichy and French falling and the territories being rolled for, I paused. And that was actually, the rolling of the Vichy territories actually does not affect, because any ships in this scenario that are Yugoslavia or Denmark would be going to the British fleet. They would not be going to a French port. So just to clarify that was a mistake that I made. Just trying to, be kind, give the the allied player the choice. And there was another mistake that I made, and I haven't even discussed this with my team yet, but I can't remember who pointed it out in our group chat, which was these boats here that went free French, I put them here. Well, this is not a naval port. So the naval base is actually over here. So these ships all should come here, which is a cruiser, destroyer, and submarine. So, which they're at a naval base now, which they weren't before. This naval base is actually in Seville, so that's not a British naval base. So, in terms of gameplay, it gives actually Hambone more options as the UK player. He can go this way now, 3 sea zones, or back the same distance. So I think he'll like that better. The other question that came up was the Danish sea zone. So the Germans came in and they attacked Denmark via ground, which makes the sea zone hostile. And there was a Danish boat here. And there was also a naval transport here, a German naval transport. So the question is, hey, like, does this an auto kill in that scenario, or what happens? You know, does it have to be a combat move to get out, which means they do not get to pick up infantry as a non-combat movement? So the answer to that question, as explained in the rules, is that's a non-com movement that happens at the end of the turn. So Germany attacks Denmark. Yes, the sea zone is hostile. At the end of the turn, the naval transport does come out, you know, and can, you know, pick up units in a different sea zone, not the same sea zone, and that's why it ended up over here. Now that's how we've always played it, and in other iterations of Axis and Allies or Global War could be different, and chime in if you think this is absolutely ludicrous or this should never happen, but that's some of the questions that did come up. But also what happened is these ships were rolled for and this ship became British. So it also, as a non-com, had to leave. I know that's different. There's a couple overlaying things here that happen simultaneously at the same time, but that's how at least we've always played it, and that's how I've explained it in the rules. So just to clarify that point. Some of the other questions that came up was, holy crap, there is way too many German submarines. The German submarines are way too powerful. You know, this is like the battle for the Atlantic is, and I've been in the other position and I've seen, you know, felt the same thing. And we've tried to balance the Atlantic as much as we can. And there's some historical things that I know are not perfect, but the biggest object in terms of, or hurdle in making this battle for the Atlantic fair, it does actually in gameplay, believe it or not, it looks right now heavily favored for the Germans, but once America and the UK and Canada start making Navy, it's going to turn tides. I predict by turn 4, things being completely flipped. But basically, the biggest hurdle is America being 3 sea zones away from landing in Normandy or Bordeaux or reinforcing London. So it does not make for the submarines having a place to hide if they're going to try and, you know, come after these convoy zones or hide in the Atlantic. And we thought we'd come up with different things like a sub pen, but it's just, we felt it was too clunky to have in the rules for now. But typically on a G1, when all these subs come into Sea Zone 23, now destroyers can detect 2 submarines, is that there's a 4-plane scramble coming from 2 planes from Liverpool and 2 planes from London. And typically, at least on the average what I've played, is this Sea Zone battle here is a wash. Now, something, you know, Hambone didn't scramble. I did bring in some aircraft as well, and I think, you know, when he gave the answer to scramble, he didn't have the map in front of him and he was just giving a quick answer. And if he had looked at the map in greater detail, I think he would have scrambled. But I did not give him the option of keeping this British submarine, which could have submerged because there was no destroyer coming into the battle. So I'm going to do that. So we're going to put a British submarine back in Sea Zone 23. And so that is there. So that does get, believe it or not, that submarine is pretty significant. But in terms of strategy, if I was the Allied player or if I was Hambone, this is what I would probably do. There's a British destroyer and a Norwegian destroyer here, which is now part of the British fleet. And now there's a submarine. Now, any combination he likes, but probably at least 2 naval units. Take out all these submarines here in support of all of these aircraft. And this fleet here is now toast. Now, this is the problem with the submarines, is they have this ability to pair together and they attack at 5. The Wolfpack, the Germans have this special ability, but defense, they're still attacking at a 2, and they do not get a surprise sneak defense. So as good as they are in attack, they are not good at defending, and that's in my experience, that's what's going to occur later on. And these coastal battleships, well, they can never make it over to North America, so they cannot go into deep sea water. So they are basically coastal defense along the coast of Western Europe, which is not really that useful. Although they did serve their purpose, capturing the sea zone up here. But anyways, so that's in terms of naval strategy. This German fleet up here, it's at least 2 sea zones away from doing anything significant. So what Hambone has here is the Free French boats go the same time as the UK boats. He's got a pretty cool, pretty good sized navy down here. Is I would be moving at least all or some of this navy 1, 2, 3. Can go 1, 2, 3 to this sea zone here, and then the following turn go 1, 2, and then these boats are back here. And in 2 turns, Canada can build a boat, the UK can build a boat, so that's an additional 4. And these fighters can come back to Nova Scotia, and they can provide a scramble if the Germans want to, come across and fight. And by that point, all of a sudden, UK has naval superiority, and just wait till America's in the war. Germany, at least in the first probably third of the game, if they want to, play over here with Russia, this is a pretty big front over here. They're going to be having to spend money over here. So that is kind of the scenario and why typically, it looks ugly early, and later on, I promise it does even out. But I have been on the other side, and every time it happens to me, and these sea zone battles do not go well for the British, I ask myself the same thing. Now, there has been discussion, because destroyers only detect 2 submarines. Do we swap out some of the naval units and, maybe remove a cruiser and put in another destroyer or something like that? But anyways, you guys let me know what you think, but I'm sure everybody probably would agree. There is way too many submarines on the board, and it sucks as a British player to lose your navy. And actually, there was actually an additional submarine, which I'm not going to add now, in Sea Zone 17 that starts the game there. I didn't put it on, so I'm just going to leave it as is. So another question that came up over here in the Pacific. So Japan does collect money for FEC. They do not have to go in. They just collect the money. There is a Free French guy there that defends. He does not attack. This money over here, however, is collected by the British if it remains in Free French on the next British turn. But the Japanese can attack it without, declaring war on anybody else besides the French. So anyways, folks, hope that answers some of your questions. And, this is the first Global War 1939 game we've done, this rule set by YouTube. So bear with us through some of the clunky parts as we try to at least answer some of your questions and work through our own hiccups along the way. So thank you for watching, folks, and stay tuned for J1 is coming up.